Today's episode of DRL is brought to you by Hella Cocktail Company. My guests don't just come to DRL for me. They also come for the cocktails. Luckily, my friends at Hella Cocktail Company have my back. These guys make amazing mixes from Bloody Mary to Margarita to Moscow Mule. They also make cocktail bitters, my secret ingredient, and now yours too. It's easy to feel like the best bartender in town when every bottle comes with a simple recipe on it. Hella Cocktail Company, bold flavor, real ingredients, hospitality. Mixing it up since 2011. Shop the collection on Amazon Prime or use code DRL online at hellacocktail.co for free shipping. Hello, my lovely listeners. Welcome back to another episode of DRL, where we're talking everything dating, relationships, and love. I'm your host, Tennesha Wood. So, crazy story. The other night, Chris had some clients in town for work, and they really wanted to go to this club called The Box. And for those of you who don't live in New York City and don't know about The Box is basically like, I'm really searching to even find the words to describe The Box, but you never know what's going to happen. It's like, it could be like some sexual things that happen on stage. It could just be stuff that's like straight out weird. I don't say weird to insult anybody's taste, just different. And so, for example, this was one of the things that was happening at The Box. This guy got on stage and he had breasts, like implants, and also had a penis, which is fine, to each his own, whatever part you want, it's yours. Here's the weird part though. He took a box of pizza, like a whole pizza, and then he put his dick through one of the slices of pizza, right? Which again, okay, this isn't the weird part yet. The weird part is then he took the pizza and he threw it into the audience. And so I got like dick pizza on me. Like I was like, no! Like my OCD just went all sorts of crazy. I immediately felt like I was like, oh my God, I feel myself getting sick right in this moment. I'm sick now. There's dick pizza on me. So it gets crazier. I'm looking around and you guys will never guess who I see. And we make eye contact. Cuba Gooding Jr. So there's dick pizza. There's Cuba Gooding Jr. There's me. And so we make eye contact, and me and Chris and the people that we went with are sitting in this booth. And Cuba Gooding Jr. he's sort of like standing in the middle, looking onto the stage. And occasionally he'll like look over at me, right? And he's like flirting with this waitress like heavy. Like she was almost like, giving him leave me alone vibes. But he was like really going heavy on her. And so then he keeps looking at me. And I say to Chris, do you think Cuba Gooding Jr. would come on DRL? And so then I'm debating on when I should ask him. I see him and I'm like, is this a good time to go up to him? And he didn't look so well, if you know what I'm saying. I'm not saying what anybody was doing, what they were on. He just didn't look quite like he was all there to me. So I was like, you know what? It's probably best not to approach Cuba Gooding Jr. in this club with dick pizza and other influences. But I feel like he gave me a look on the way out. I wasn't going to disrespect my man like that for Cuba Gooding Jr. So I let that be and I let that go. So if you're ever in New York City or if you live here, you have to just go to The Box at least once just because it's such an experience. Other experiences that night included a girl sewing her vagina together with actual needle. There was a magic show, so that was random but cool. There was like birds flying everywhere. It was just, like I said, it's really hard to explain, but please do check it out. Anyway, tonight I have my girl Ayesha with me.
Hello.
Hey.
Yes, The Box.
Ayesha is newly single.
Ah, yes.
She was in a long-term relationship for 3 years.
Yes.
So we'll talk about readjusting back to single life and what that's been like.
Yeah.
So how are you doing?
I'm good.
How long has it been?
It has been officially, give or take, 4 months maybe. Brand new. I'm a newbie. I'm a baby.
And how are you feeling about it?
I'm okay. It's transitions are always good in life. Transitions always give you a moment to like reflect back and kind of like cleanse yourself, and gives you an opportunity to look forward. So I'm in that space as I'm settling into this new reality.
So you were in the relationship for 3 years.
Yes.
Did you think this was going to be it, as in the person, marriage, future, etc.?
I don't know if you can be in a relationship for that long and not envision that or figure that that's the reality of what is to come. Marriage is always a tricky thing too. I don't know if I should go deep into that also, but yes.
We got time.
One of my best friends is a guy, and we always had these like real deep conversations about how much should you push to be married? What's that conversation supposed to be like? And he's like, you know, if you get into a relationship and marriage is end all be all, then you kind of need to rethink what you're doing. And so I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. There has to be like something practical, you know, where you're going next. And he was like, you know, when you go into something, you go into it knowing that you're going into it to ebbs, flows, roller coasters, whatever. You're kind of in it to be in it. And wherever it takes you, it's where it takes you, but you're connected to that person as opposed to the idea of being married.
You were certain, I guess, of a future, but you weren't entirely certain that marriage was the place you wanted to go anyway.
I had gotten to that point where I wasn't sure. I mean, what does marriage look like? I'm still in this real existential space. What is marriage? What does that look like? As opposed to like, yes, no, this person is like my life partner. This is the person who I'm like willing to rock with until, you know, we can't rock anymore. As opposed to my grandmother would kill me if she heard this. She would be like, what are you doing with your life? So...
You know, it's funny. I used to have a coworker and she would always talk about her life partner.
Yeah.
So I just assumed that she was a lesbian.
Yes. That's always the easiest thing that you can default to.
Right.
Yes.
And so then sense. When I met her husband at an event, I was like, oh, this is your life partner. Oh, okay. But it is weird to hear other people define it like that.
Totally. Totally.
But it makes sense. I've sort of been on this space with marriage myself where I'm like, do I need that to validate what the relationship is or keep the relationship intact or make it the way I want it? Like, what does it really change for me if I were to take that next step?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure a whole lot, especially not having children together. I'm not sure that it is always necessary. I'm still figuring it out, you know. Don't put me past like a big wedding or a courthouse or nothing at all. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out.
Of course, I know. I'm like, the other day I was talking to my mom, and we're in the middle of planning my grandparents' 60th wedding anniversary. And it's a whole big to do, which I will catch you up on once it's done. It's in November, but they're doing this whole thing where like there's a procession coming in. And so I told my mom, I was like, the whole idea of a wedding makes me anxious. Just the idea of having to walk down an aisle with all those people staring at you, waiting for you to trip and fall. You have to look
Nobody
weird.
is waiting on that.
It's like one of those things where it's just like, I always feel like so awkward because the bride is walking down the aisle and it's like, let me make eye contact with everybody that I see. Trying to acknowledge. It's just the weirdest for me. It's so uncomfortable and feels so bizarre. But I know to each his own. But I'm like, even if I were to get married and have a ceremony, we are not doing any aisle walking down. It's just like I'm up there at the front and that's it. So
we'll be up there at the front when you get there.
I'm just already stationary right where I need to be. So yeah.
In your previous relationship,
yes.
What happened after 3 years?
Life. As I get older, am understanding that things are not as clean as I used to think that things could be. For some people they are, for other people they aren't.
Clean in what way?
Clean in what way? As in like clean break. I'm severing and I'm moving on. And maybe with some people in a relationship that you're in, you know, that could be the definitive finality of things, right? So we broke up. We are moving on with our lives. I will never see you ever again. I won't talk to you ever again. We are no longer connected. We are disconnected for life.
I don't do that. Typically, I don't do that. I've never done that. I still am in contact with pretty much all my, some, not so much, but some of them I am really still connected to. But this one in particular, I just learned so much. I learned a lot. I learned a whole lot just about people and life and myself and relationships and realities around how complicated relationships are, but how beautiful it is to kind of really open yourself up to someone
there's no way that you would ever meet someone who doesn't come with complications.
Never.
You won't meet someone, particularly at our age, who has not broken hearts, been in love with someone, still, emotionally attached or connected to someone in a way. We leave our prints on folks. And the expectation that I'd have someone who's fully cleansed of anything, or that I would go into anything fully cleansed of anything else also, I think is a little unfair. And then opening up yourself up to someone to also open up to the possibility of saying you just don't know where life is going to take you either. And I think that's what I mean about the severing of things. So I don't know if there was ever a relationship I would have been in where I would have been like, yeah, no, I'm good. It's done. Keep it moving.
Right.
As opposed to understanding how fluid and how big life is. And to understand that I don't know what's going to happen next and kind of be okay in that space. I don't know if that's cryptic in the way that I'm talking about it.
So when you're saying life happened.
Life happened.
Does that mean you sort of let go of the need to plan things out in this clean way that you had maybe seen in your past or thought things would be? Or do you just mean like we're just different people, or like what does life happen really mean?
In the relationship itself, you stick so hard to an idea of what a relationship is supposed to be like, right? So I was still up until the end, still like really conflicted and really confused. Like I know I'm supposed to get married and have kids, right? So it's just like everything coming at you like, okay, you need to figure this out, or he needs to figure this out. Y'all need to figure this out so that you can take that next step
In order to get to this place.
And still just really being confused about what that place is.
Is that something you wanted?
Yes.
And he wanted, or was it going through the steps of life?
Going through the steps of life, as opposed to being able to step back and say, what do we want collectively? What will work for us collectively? And I think, and I can speak for him, and I'm sure he would come and say the same exact thing too, that for him, that's a struggle also, right? So we put so much expectation on both men and women and what we're supposed to do, how we're supposed to behave, what the relationship is supposed to look like. And you're so attached to that so tightly.
That you forget sometimes the person because you're attached to the idea of what it should be. Yeah. And it's almost like you're inserting a person into this vision where it's like, okay, so I'm going to get married, I'm going to have kids, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And Q, you come in, you're right here, you're the groom, and go.
Exactly.
So did you guys talk about that? Did you guys feel like you were on the same page? Or just on the same idea?
Oh, that's a good question. Oh, and that distinction too, same idea versus same page.
Right.
I think that I think it was too tight to talk about in the relationship, if that makes sense. We were in the relationship, so it's too hard to talk about it while you're in it. I think we've had a lot more reflective conversations, without that pressure of, we have to take this next step because we're in this 3-year relationship and now this is where we're supposed to go, as opposed to, we're no longer bounded in that way. And so now we can have these really open, honest conversations about maybe ideas that I might have projected on you, ideas you might have projected on me, what prevented me from doing this, what prevented you from doing that. There's just a lot more openness around just the reality, which is what I've learned so much coming out of the situation.
So it sounds like there's conversations happening now that weren't happening in the relationship.
I think so. I think that I think the sense of pressure is off in a weird way. And maybe it's just like a psychological mental click, right? Or it's just like, okay, well, now I can have this conversation because I don't know. I think it's a mental thing. I think it's a mental like click off and on which is bizarre and doesn't make sense to me.
No, it is. Once you feel like once you lock yourself into a role, in any role in your mind, you almost feel like you have to act in that role.
Yeah.
And until you're released from the role, it's almost like you can't think outside of the role sometimes. So the role you were in and he was in, it's like, I'm the girlfriend, I'm the boyfriend, go. And you can't think outside of those roles until you're outside of those roles. You're like, oh, I'm just me.
Exactly.
Ayesha.
Exactly. And then I've learned so much just watching, so many relationships around me you, other folks, about how different the package can look, right? So, I mean, everybody has their own thing and it's their own unique thing as opposed to some set defined kind of idea or sense of what it's supposed to look like. I think it's so beautiful and so enlightening for me to be able to look around and say, okay, well, maybe I can take pieces of this and pieces of that and carry that and hold that and share that, which I think is a good thing. To help get out of that box. The box is a scary place. And the box terrifies people so much. And it's just like, what would it look like if we could be like out of this box? How much more free could we be if that were the case? So I don't know.
Well, we'd be much more open to people as the people that they are.
Yeah.
And we would get to know them on a much deeper level because we're not putting them in that role.
Yeah.
We're just seeing them as, here's a person.
Yep.
Who is unique and individual and has their own thoughts and feelings. And I can get to know on that level.
Yep.
Do you feel now, in looking back and having learned a little bit more about him and about yourself, are there things that you wish you would have done differently in the relationship?
There are things that I know about myself. But then the thing is, I mean, would I do it differently or would I just acknowledge that that's what I'm doing and how I am? At this point, I'm pretty good with me. Like, I like me. There's always some things that I feel like we can change and work on with ourselves. But at the end of the day, you know, it's kind of, we get stuck in our ways and who we are.
But how do we know that line? What's the line of, this is a behavior that I should change in order for this relationship to thrive?
Yeah.
And this is who I am. Yeah. You know, that's a tough line. Like, what can change and what should change and what can't and what shouldn't? In my relationship, things will just happen, or Chris and I will like get into it. And then sometimes I'm like, this is who I am, you know, but is it? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, is it who I am or is it just who I've been? So I assume that it's who I am. Yeah. Because that's what he's always saying. He's like, you're choosing to make that who you are. Yeah. You know, but I've slowly been becoming like more aware of the messages that I've fed myself all my life and that other people have fed me, and trying to figure out if that is truly me. Yeah. Similar to what we were saying with the marriage and the package and the children, like, is it something you really want or has it just been fed to you so much that you can't even see outside of it when you're in it? Yeah. And it's even harder when you're thinking about who you are as a person because you're in it, you know, 24/7, 365 and you can't get out. Totally. But I've really been like, damn, is that who I am or is that who I've become accustomed to being based on the situations and the people and everything that I've been fed? Yeah. And so sometimes I really try to tell myself nowadays, like when I start getting in my feelings and I start getting mad, and it's just like, he doesn't understand that this is who I am and I will not change for you because this is who I am. Yes. Okay.
With
like
conviction.
I really, with so much conviction, I really started to question, is that who I am? Yeah. Is that who I have to be? Yeah. Is who I am in this moment forwarding myself personally or the relationship? Yeah. Even that needs to be dissected.
Yep, totally. I was, it's so funny, like now things are starting to be conflated and they probably shouldn't, but I love my job. And at work I have a leadership coach. And so in the conversations, the lines definitely cross themselves between personal and kind of professional development. And it's interesting, right, to think about like at work, in order to work in a team with people, you have to have a certain level of self-awareness in order for you guys to work cohesively with one another.
Right. That's why they make you take the Myers-Briggs and all that.
All that fun stuff. Like, how do you connect with this person? Like, what are you doing? Do you see yourself? How do you grow as a leader? But it's so funny because I had this moment and I was like, it's so weird because like we learn all this stuff like fundamentally academically, but then when we leave our office and we go into our own personal space, like all that shit is out the window. It's just like, what was that teamwork thing? Yeah, teamwork is only about work because teamwork doesn't mean nothing outside of work. And so it's just like, well, actually, don't know. There's something about that should actually translate into kind of the way we live our daily lives and just 100%. This level of self-awareness. I think I start to understand, like, is it me as opposed to, yes, I'm like, this is me, this is how I am, this is give it, this, I've been like this for 36 years, this is how I am. I think I'm 36. Yes. So I always have to keep checking myself, like, how old am I? But then I have to take a step back and like, okay, well, is this not just helpful to this situation and the cohesiveness of the situation, but is it helpful to me too? Because am I stressing myself out by being the way that I am? Is there something that maybe I need to actually step back and dissect myself? Like, why am I doing that? Do I feel that strongly connected to that emotion or that behavior or that personality king, to hold on to it so hard with so much conviction? Or what if I actually let it go? Like, what would that do to my life? So it's hard because then for me, it's like an acknowledgement that there was something wrong with me. Where right. I've been able to like push it off and like, oh, it's not me, it's not me, it's not me. When actually, and not wrong as in like, oh my God, you're flawed, but just wrong as in maybe there's something about me that I do need to work on.
Right.
Maybe I'm not fully wholly packaged right now in this sense. And there is space to grow because we always have to grow.
I look at it like moving furniture around, right? There's nothing wrong with the way the furniture is right now. Yeah. I mean, it flows fine. We can move around, yes. But it's a nice change, we could see what it does. It might do nothing. Like we might be like, it actually worked better the other way. It actually looked better the other way, but it's worth at least trying.
Definitely.
Just to see.
Totally.
Yeah, it's an interesting time in life at 36.
It's a very interesting.
I'll be 30. This is the time in life once you're past 33 where you forget your age, where you really start being like, wait, how old am I again? Do you want kids?
I do want kids. I actually do want kids. That's a whole nother stressor in and of itself too. Cause yes. I do want kids. I keep saying that over and over again. Not to like legitimize the fact that I do want to have kids, but just to understand all the pressure that comes along with that too. I want kids. I want a career. I want to advance myself. I want a lot of things. How do you piece all those things together? Is a complicated thing. And then it's just like, a time clock. So what, I need to have kids in the next 2 years. I go ahead and freeze my eggs. All these different things that women have to like compete with.
You know what Vanessa told me one time? Ayesha and I have a mutual friend that introduced us, Vanessa.
Hey, Vanessa.
Who's been on. She's been on. I think she was on episode.
Vanessa. Oh, yeah, she was.
Yeah, it was called If I Knew Then. But the thing that she told me was one time she was like, I'm actually open to adopting. And I feel like once I decided that, it took the pressure off of feeling like I need to meet somebody by X time. She's like, because then like I could just adopt a kid by myself if I want to. And so I've really started to think that way myself and encourage my friends to think that way.
I love it.
There's not just one way to do things.
Yeah.
And when you remove that pressure from yourself, it becomes, I think, easier to meet somebody just because, again, it's not, here's the role, and cue, you're in. It's like, here are the things I want, and you can fit in that or you cannot. And that's okay either way.
Totally. I know that's an excellent thing to think about. It's an excellent way to think about it. It's so funny. And then, a sit down conversation with family too. Like, look, y'all need to chill.
They sat you down?
No, they didn't sit me down, but I need to sit down and have a conversation with them. I'm going to be in so much trouble.
What are they saying?
I come from a very big family, extended family, a huge extended family. I'm only talking about immediate family at the moment. And the pressure is on, right? To grow this tribe and, to have other little people added to the mix. And, that's why else are you here on earth if not to do that? And I'm like, well, there's a lot of other stuff that I like to do too. Or even and I don't think it's intentional, but the devaluation of your time and kind of what you're doing. So
you don't have children? Oh, it looks like you're doing nothing with your life right now.
Not even that. How come you can't do? You don't have kids. She has kids. She's busy. I'm like, well, what do you think I'm doing with my time right now? So
that has to stop.
That has
to stop.
It
I'm really
Thanksgiving conversations.
That has to stop. Not just with your family, but just in society general, as a whole. Like devaluing women that don't have children or that don't want them or looking down on it, like their life is worth nothing because of that. That's ridiculous to me. I'm so sick of that.
Yeah. Or even just the it's almost like oh my gosh, you don't want kids, or it's even like, well, I don't understand what you do if you don't have.
There's literally nothing else on earth to do without children. The correct thing is, I don't understand what you do if you have children because you can't do shit else when you have kids. It's rough.
I can't even figure out how to function with a kid, to be honest. I say I want a kid, but I'm just like, I don't even know how to I have no intention of leaving New York City anytime soon, and I can't figure out how people navigate through this city with kids. I just can't. I'm like, more power to you. I look at you, I commend you. I don't know how I'd be able to do it. I could barely wake up in the morning. Then I have to wake up and take care of somebody else before I take care of myself. It's just like, wow, it's a big thing to kind of just process.
So it kind of sounds like you're at the stage where you're like, how does this actually fit into my life? Like from a practical standpoint, how does this actually fit?
Yeah, totally. Which is uncomfortable for me to think about.
Right.
It's very uncomfortable.
I 100% understand that. Yeah. Over the summer, the girls were here for a significant period of time. So normally they're here on the weekends, but they were here just like Monday through Friday every day for like a straight month. Yeah. Or Monday through like the whole week. Is what I mean. Like four straight weeks.
A good amount of time.
And it was a wake-up call for me in a lot of ways. Yeah. It was like, wow, I didn't realize all that this took and all that this entailed. Yeah. And it's not easy.
No.
You know, it's and this is with kids that are pretty self-sustaining and smart.
I love it.
You know? And that's hard.
Yeah.
Now, imagine you have any sort of other challenges. You know what I'm saying? Totally. And so it's just, I think about those things too. Like, wow, like I do eventually want children of my own, but is that something I can handle?
I don't know.
Is my lifestyle set up for that? Yep. Do I want my lifestyle to be set up for that? Like, can I handle that sort of responsibility?
Completely.
And I'm told it's one of those, children are, well, when it's here, you're ready. Yes, there's no real sort of preparation that you can do, but it's rough. Yeah. It's rough.
Yeah. My aunt came out to visit early in the summer, and she has kids. She has 3 kids. Hey, y'all, Nyla, Khalil, Eli. A 7-year-old. Oh, I'm going to get the ages totally wrong. 7, 5, and 3. I might be off by a year on one of them. It was so funny because I loved them to death, and it was like the most amazing experience. They were here for a day, in and out, she and her husband and the kids. And just like makes me whole, right, when they're here. But there was one moment when Eli, the 3-year-old, was sitting eating a piece of chicken on my couch, and I was like, oh my God, his greasy fingers are gonna be on my couch. And it was this moment that's all I could focus on. And I was like, I love you so much, and I love you in this space, but you're going to get greasy fingers on my couch. And my aunt saw my face, and she like ran over real quick to grab them. And so it was but it was one of those things, right? Like in my apartment, I have my things set up in a way that I like to have them set up.
Ayesha has her books on her bookshelf color-coded. So she understands OCD. She gets it.
I get it. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do if I get the grease on the couch? Because then I have to go, and I don't know if it'll ever come off, and I have to get a new couch because I can't have that couch with the grease on it. So that for me was like, oh my God, and I want kids. So how do I like reconcile those things together? Because kids are kids. They just do what they
dirty.
Do. OCD does not fit in with a child. So
I'm learning and understanding that. Yo, when Jackie and Zola are here, it's funny because they'll be like when other people come over, they'll be like, yeah, Tanisha doesn't like messes. Like it's like almost their way of warning people, like she's a little crazy. So watch yourself.
Talk about self-awareness. It's like, yes, we know what's up.
And I'll be like, girls, what's the one thing I do not like? They're like, messes. You don't like messes. So why is this room looking like this?
That is hilarious. That is everything. Yeah, that's the real.
And I feel like it's like having kids is like being in a relationship, right?
Yeah.
The older you get, the harder it is to make space for it in your life because you're really set in who you are the older you get. Like just like if you meet somebody at like 20, it's easier because you're not full, you're not whole yet.
Yeah.
Not that you're not whole, but you don't, you know what I'm saying? Like you haven't grown completely.
Yeah.
And by the time you're 30, you're like, this is who I am. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's rough.
But then coupling that though with the whole idea, like kids make you have to be flexible, right? You have to be nimble with kids. And so I feel like just taking that into relationships and the ability to be flexible is what kind of propels things along.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can be OCD in a relationship either.
Yes, you can.
To an extent, I feel like at some point your OCD will be like, actually, no, that's conflicting with my ability to do X, Y, Z. No, what do you think?
It hasn't really been like a big problem for me. It's just I accept that it is my role to do certain things based on the fact that, you know, it's my thing.
I love it.
You know, so I'm not going to be like, Chris, before you leave, could you just make sure all the couch cushions are straightened? Like, I just would never ask him something like that. Yeah. So I just, as soon as he gets up, I just like, let me straighten these couch cushions. I don't know why this man has to mess up my couch cushions all the time. So I don't complain about it. I don't nag. I'm not like, why didn't you straighten the couch cushions? I'm just like, whatever, you do you. And sometimes when he leaves and he comes back and he's like, what have you been doing? And I'm like, you know what? You wouldn't even understand if I told you. He's like, no, really, like, what were you doing?
Not even.
I was putting all the socks in the same order, in the same way. So they're facing all the same way. I'm like, see, you wouldn't even get it. It's fine. Don't worry about it. When I'm gone, you sit here and play NBA 2K. When you're gone, I organize weird shit.
I love it. I love it. I love it. That is everything.
So since you're single now, have you been back out there?
I have not.
Why?
Not in the space for it.
Why?
I know that's it, right? I think I'm practical. I don't. I mean, it's weird. I don't have the time, which it sounds like a cop out, but
you don't have kids. No,
I know, right? Well, it sounds like a real cop out to say that I don't have time. But to be honest, like there's so many things that are shifting just in life, period, that I feel like I'm choosing to focus time and attention to. And at some point, I will shift and focus time and attention to that too. But I'm okay in this space that I'm in right now. I mean, I don't know. You know, you set priorities in life and what you're choosing to prioritize and focusing on right now, that's the priority. So that is the maybe naive and silly answer and thinking and response, but that's the, I guess, reality I'm choosing to lean into at the moment.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay. In my opinion,
I know.
which you didn't ask for, but I'm going to give you anyway.
I know. And I probably know exactly what you're saying.
I think after being in something for that long, it's a good idea to just sort of get back out there. I'm not saying, you know, get into another relationship and then get married and have kids 6 months from now. Like, I'm not saying that. Yeah. I'm just saying, like, I think it's just a good idea to rediscover yourself in other ways too. Yeah. Like, seeing yourself through other people is a part of getting to know yourself, because there's things that you don't see, new people that you don't know yet, that you haven't met yet. Like, how are new men like seeing you? Yeah. You know, like what are those things like? Yeah. So I think it's worth just maybe a couple dates here and there, nothing crazy, no big commitments, but just, you know, seeing what's out there.
We'll hold that one there.
She's like, I'm not making any promises about this at all.
We'll hold that one there. I know it's the same exact thing I would tell you or anyone else. 100%. The same exact advice. No different. But yeah, I don't have a good answer or a logical answer.
If I set you up on a date, would you go?
That's so funny. No answer.
So if tomorrow I was like, hey, I met this guy. I think you'd really like him.
I love it.
Would you go out with him next week?
I love it.
What would you say?
I would say I'm just not in that space. I don't know. I know. Some days I wake up and I'm like, yes, I'm in that space. Other days I wake up and I'm like, no, I'm not in that space. Today I'm not really in that space.
Do you sort of feel like you're still grieving the old relationship?
I think that I am. Change is hard for me. I think in general, like just change and transition is something that's hard, which is funny because I'm a military kid. I, moved around a lot. And I think that's part of the reason why change and transition is so hard for me. Sometimes I just need to sit with it for a second, to let it be like, okay. And to sit in the new realities or new normals. And so I don't know, just even if it was a single date with someone, like it would be a chore. It would feel like a chore. And I think until it doesn't feel like a chore anymore, then I don't know if it's even worth. I have so much other stuff that I'm competing with in my head than to think about having to add one extra thing that would make me anxious. Which sounds so dramatic. It sounds
so anxious about this state.
So anxious about it. It's like, oh my God, I feel so dramatic to say all that. But yeah, no, clearly I'm conflicted and confused in this space at the moment.
So in the reflections that you've done,
yes,
have you come to a space where you can say definitively, not boxing yourself in, but definitively, these are the things I want to experience with another person?
Yes, I have.
What are those things?
Or experience or want to feel like with a
want
person.
to feel like.
Yeah. Stability, definitely 100%. So someone who, even without saying it, is just kind of there to like hold you down, or to just hold on to you, in a way. Honesty and openness is a really big thing, which I'm learning just in having these conversations. Like to be able to have those conversations while you're actually in a relationship is something that would be so amazing.
Right.
And security. So I think partially also that's that whole fluidness between my like leadership coaching and life stuff. Just in life, because life has always been so kind of sporadic and like real like jarring just shifts and changes, right? You're in a place for 2 years, you pick up and you're in a whole new place for another 2 years. And there's just not that kind of stability. You're just constantly like shifting. You're in shifting mode constantly.
Right.
To be able to have someone who brings that would just be like the ultimate release. For me, I think it would be like, okay, I'm home now because there's someone who brings that to my life.
When you say stability, some might think of that as you were in a relationship for 3 years.
Yeah.
Isn't that part of stability?
No.
What's the difference between, you guys weren't like on off a ton.
No.
But so what wasn't stable about that to you?
I think just the consistent emotional awareness of what you are and what you're doing, that you're both on the same page and going in the same direction. I think when some people are stopping and starting just in their minds or, pivoting, maybe there's not a consistency that's there.
Got it.
Even if the core of it or the surface of it is consistent, no, there wasn't off and on. It was a stable. But even within that core, there were stops and starts and moves and shifts.
Got it.
So in order for that to be stable and consistent, obviously things happen, but I think that's what I'm thinking when I say stability.
So like maintaining an emotional awareness of each other and like where you each are on the journey.
And growing in that.
Right.
Yeah. Stability, dependability is like at the core, more important to me than anything else, actually. Which I realized that what I needed so much of because I didn't have a lot of it just in life. And that's also a bigger conversation too. Like how much stuff do we bring to relationships with us? Or how much stuff do we bring with other people's expectations because of what we bring with us, right? I come from a 2-parent household, definitely, right? My parents have been married for 36 years. My grandparents, 60 years. My dad's parents have been married for decades. So on the surface of it, it looks like, little suburban Cosby show, like Black people, like, making it and doing it. But there's life stuff that happens around that too, that totally just rocks your core.
Right.
And yeah, that adds to, I'm going on a tangent right now, but that's all like, I think a part of, where that stability thing is coming from too.
Now that you've identified these things that you want.
Yes.
Do you feel like you're willing to compromise in a way that you haven't before on other things? Yeah. So for example, if you meet a guy where you're like, wow, he makes me feel so stable and he's consistent and we're emotionally on the same plane. Mm-hmm. Are you willing to consider things like, oh, well, he didn't go to college, or, oh, he isn't in a career field I might have normally chosen? Yeah. Like, are there other compromises you're willing to make now?
I think to an extent. Probably more so than I would have before. Would I compromise for anything, or like what would I compromise for? I mean, I'd have to have a connection with the person. Like, I need to be interested and engaged with them, as opposed to like, yeah, I just don't understand, and we can't have a conversation with one another. So that's a long way to say yes, I would compromise on some stuff, knowing what at the foundation of what I feel like I need, I've identified, and finally understand more fully.
Got it.
Yes.
I asked because I've realized that's a shift that I made.
Yeah.
Because when I was like in my 20s, I did have this list in my head. Yeah. And the list, some of it was very trivial. Yeah. Some of it was important. Yep. But I realized that sometimes I was really compromising the important things for the trivial things. Yeah. Like I wanted him to have this type of job. Yes. Well, he's not as open and honest as I'd like him to be, but he has this type of job. You know what I mean? Where it's just really though? Yeah. And I think the reason that we think like that and that we actually go along with it, especially when we're young, is because we're more concerned, I think, with what the outside believes than what we're feeling. Right. So it's like, he might be amazing, but he's a janitor and like that's going to be looked down upon by my friends. Yep. But they can't always see how honest he is. Yep. So, you know what I'm saying?
Yep, totally.
And the older you get, the more you're just like, I don't care what anybody else thinks.
Totally. I was thinking about that so randomly the other day. I won't name names, but I was like, there was this guy that people made fun of him. It's like, oh my gosh. But I mean,
why do people make fun of him?
Physical things. Just like, if I say the physical things, then I'll identify him. Okay. And there are people who, yes.
Okay.
But I thought he was a nice person. He was really nice to me. He's like a really sweet person. And at the end, I never pursued that because of, all like the way people just like ragged on him all the time. And so I was like, how would my life have been different if I actually dated him then instead of the person who I did date then? Like how my life would be completely different. I made a bad decision.
Because he's doing some great stuff now.
I made really bad decisions early on in life. I made really, really bad decisions. An ex-boyfriend actually told me that recently, that I made bad decisions. It was self-fulfilling, but for him. But yeah, no, like when you think about that, right? How much we've been deterred from kind of maybe the direction we should have taken because we're so concerned about all the outside stuff. Yep. So that's the other thing, like sit down and have that conversation, like y'all need to just stop. Let me live my life and do my thing that I'm doing. Or for me, just get more confidence in saying I'm going to do what I'm going to do and be okay with
deal with it.
So yeah.
I really like came head to head with that when I met Chris.
Yeah. That was a story.
Because I'm like, he is so different. Yeah. He just cares about me so much and I can already tell that.
I love it.
But there was still something just blinking in my mind that I was like, oh, but children, the children, baggage, and I really had to say, you could probably meet somebody without kids, but are they going to treat you like this? Yeah. Are they going to be like this to you?
Yeah.
And then the second part of that which I was like, okay, so you can't just look at this as like, oh, a man with kids, cool. Like, how are you going to enrich his life and his children's life? And so it's really like dating him has been a growth process for me. And I'm still going through it, but I'm glad that I didn't just close that door based on he didn't, or checked an extra box rather that.
No.
Right.
I mean, just in going back to my whole thing of watching, you know, all y'all and everyone, like, I don't know if I would have had the confidence to be able to kind of go into the relationship in the way that y'all did, which is so beautiful. And to watch it kind of blossom and evolve in the way that it has been such an amazing experience for me to kind of learn from. Because I don't know if I would have been able to do that. I was like, you know, when we found out, I was like, wow, I don't know if I could do that.
So just so y'all know, when I first started dating Chris, when I first started dating Chris, I was gone. Like I was traveling for a couple months, and then that's essentially when we got to know each other, when we decided that we would be together. So then I came back home after 2 months, and then I was just like, hey friends, by the way, I'm with this guy now. He's my boyfriend. He has kids, and we're moving in together next month. Thanks. It was just like no sort of cushion. I was just like, we're just going full in.
And I'm sitting here looking at you like I'm sitting in this relationship for 2 years, and I'm just like, I'm just still like moving along. I think you could ask him. I called him. I was like, what's wrong with you? Look what other people can do.
But that's the thing. Even my own boxes that I had created.
Yeah.
What I did, like moving in so quick and deciding to be in the relationship so quick, it was something I would have never done. Like I've never lived with a guy before. I've never taken steps like that. Yeah. And like I had to really get outside my own head and just be like, you know what? Yeah. Take a chance. Yeah. Like you never know. So I'm glad I did.
I'm glad you did too. I love it. I'm so glad you did. So glad you did. But those are those moments when that's also important too, to be able to look at what other folks are doing and just to watch and just observe, stuck in your ways, but then still opening up that space for stories like that to come through. And like, well, what could I open myself up to something like that? Like, let me take a step back and reevaluate what I'm doing, because maybe I need to like start to rethink and
go out on that date
and go
see how that came back around full circle. Well, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
This was very enlightening.
Me. Thank you for helping me always see life in a different way.
You are very welcome. Yeah. So can people reach you like on Instagram or anything?
They can. They can reach me on Instagram at Go Sunshine. I'm from New Orleans, so it's spelled the Creole version. So Geaux Sunshine.
This is so silly, but I never knew what your Instagram meant. Why in my mind was like Goke Sunshine? Gokes? Okay, all right.
I love it.
No, but because you're so artistic, I was like, probably some art shit. I don't know. Anyway.
That is tapping into my roots. I'm holding on to my roots and
got it.
Who I am, my birth home. So yes, it's Go Sunshine. Yes.
So Geaux.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
I love it. That's hilarious. I never thought about that. That's probably how other people are like, what the hell is this?
You should put in parentheses the Creole version of Go.
I'm going to add that tonight.
Like just educate us all. Educate us all.
I'm adding that tonight. Thank you for that.
And thank you guys so much for listening today. Please let me know what you think of today's show. You can reach me at Tennesha Wood on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And until next time, wish me love. Hello again, my lovely listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of DRL. If you like the show, be sure to go on iTunes and leave a rating and also write a review. And don't forget to share with your friends and tell them all about DRL. Thank you so much for supporting.